Hey, is the AI wrecking ball wreaking havoc in the workplace? You're watching Tech Strong Gang. Hey, everyone, it's Alan Schimmel. Happy Monday. Wow, that weekend, it feels like it was just Friday. But here we are on Monday, and we are an amazing lineup of Tech Strong Gang people to talk about some amazing stuff with. We were talking in the green room before coming on. You know, two of the people on here, Andy Mann and Sanjeev Sharma, helped me start DevOps.com in 2013, 2014. And here we are 11 years, going on 12 years later, still talking DevOps, now with AI and everything else. But whatever we're talking about, I'm just happy to see them and have them be part of it. Of course, Mitch was there too with me. This is even before Mitchell was still at the Cable Labs company, but working DevOps. So it was good stuff. And we got a great panel today. They're Andy, Mitch, and Sanjeev are joined by all-stars, Tracy Reagan, Camberly Bates. Camberly, it's so good to see you. Mike, and of course, everybody's favorite Yankee fan. They won last night, Mike.
There you go, man.
There you go. So, look, as usual, we've got a lot of AI to talk about today. You know, last week I was out in Napa at this JFrog Swamp Up event, and it boggles my mind how quickly this has so deeply rooted into everything we're doing in tech anyway, and kind of turned it on its head. I use the term AI wrecking ball because I think in some ways it is a wrecking ball. But sometimes you gotta, it's like when they're building new hotels on the Vegas Strip, they got to implode the old stuff to build that new stuff. Not the way we usually like to do tech. But Mike, what do we got?
All right. Well, our folks seem to be pushing the limitations of AI is the way I would kind of look at it. We have not one, not two, but three separate studies looking at folks who are saying that they keep starting to use some sort of project using AI, but they can't complete it because it doesn't quite fit for purpose or whatever they were trying to do. The AI just wasn't up to the task, or it could be they just didn't have the skills to get there because, well, it turns out you got to be pretty savvy about how to use this stuff. Andy, I know you've been playing around with this stuff, but a lot of folks I talk to, and we've seen them gone from, we need you to use AI, to now they're using AI, and they're reporting that they're slightly disappointed.
Yeah, look, I mean, the AI revolution is absolutely upon us. There's no doubt about it. These surveys are really interesting in some of the stuff they discover. It's non-trivial that we're going to lose 45% of certain jobs, that 45% of jobs are going to go away. Types of jobs. Interesting. When you think about clerical jobs and low skill, we can talk about whether that is actually a thing or not. But one of the things that's going to happen here is paralegals are going to go away. This is really interesting to me because it signals that complexity is where we're going to get a lot of advantage from. If we get advantage, because you're right, Mike, there's a lot of people trying and failing, but everyone's doing it. Another thing that came out of this research was the lack of compliance, governance, control. There's a lot of people using it. Sometimes they're using official LLMs. Sometimes they're not. I mean, I'll tell you, mate, I just bought a new laptop. I've got a button here which fires up Copilot, right? I happen to have a corporate license to Copilot, but what if I didn't? Well, all of a sudden, maybe I'm doing strategy work, I'm doing competitive intelligence, maybe I'm doing product planning, and I'm pumping my stuff into a public LLM. And I wonder if my competitors can go and ask that LLM what I'm doing. There's a lot of concern here about the jobs, and I get that. There's a lot of concern about trust and using this AI and creating AI slop. And we're seeing this a lot in sort of social media, but when we do this, legal pleadings are being kicked out of court because they're creating cases that don't exist as precedent. And so there's a lot of concern here. I think we've got to get a lot more controls around what we're doing, a lot more understanding of who's doing what with AI, ways to build up trust. And we know there are things like, human in the middle and RAG and stuff, but we've got to get ways to address the findings of these surveys. Finally, the last thing I think is really cool in this article by John Schwartz is that there are 5 ways to address this. And some of them are pretty obvious, training, but others, there's some good advice in here. So I think we've got a good way out, but I'm very concerned about the slop, about the governance and compliance, and about the lack of trust that we have in these tools.
Andy, that is fabulous what you had to say. I've been traveling a lot the last 2 months, personal travel. And in that travel, I've been talking to a whole lot of non-technologists. So I got out of my bubble. I've been out of my bubble and I'm talking, and I've been with a lot of Aussies, New Zealanders, Canadians, Germans, etc. And those conversations, when they have found out that I know what I know about AI, which is about this much, but yet I know that much more. Sorry, I'm doing the Italian thing. Wasn't even in Italy. I know so much more than the rest of these people. And that's scary. And so what they globbed onto me to say, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? I'm a teacher. I am a lawyer. I am a researcher on all these things. And so when I come from that visual of there, and I read this, especially the Audacity research report, I came away with a couple things in those conversations. One, the LLMs and all that work is really good at data, memory, and recall. Really, it's good. Well, it's almost really good because it makes stuff up, right? And I disagree with the paralegal thing. And the reason is because the next thing it has to do is analysis. And it needs that systems architect, that senior coder, that expert marketing person, that level of analysis to say, is this right or this wrong, which is exactly what that data is pointing into. And then the last thing, which is I appreciate, because I'm in my 60s, guys, and that last thing is called wisdom. And, as you get into this stuff, you've hit your head up against enough things to the point that you kind of go, you sit back and you kind of go, okay, seen this one before. Let me not be a stick in the wood here, but let me have an open mind and think about where this goes. And so those 3 levels of knowledge, data, expertise, and how we apply to this, the LLM is just coming out of college with data, memory, memorization, and recall. And we're asking it to be a 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old wisdom, whatever his name is, Godfald or whatever, wisdom kind of wizard. And that just is not going to happen overnight, guys. I'm sorry.
Well, the AI slop issue, that assumes we weren't already producing slop. That's beside the point. Without AI, it's the whole prediction around jobs always entertains me because it's kind of like, the weather. Nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's laying off all these people yet, right? They're just pontificating about what's going to matter. And here we're talking about the disruptive nature of AI, but we're not sure where to use it and where it's really going to be effective. So it's a little hard to predict that accurately. I think to your point, Kimberly, combining AI with someone who has a great knowledge base is powerful. We see that on Vibe. We see that in coding, just whether it's Vibe or not. Sanjeev can wax on about that. He's got a ton of experience there. And but it's also people who have a really depth and a skill that are used to kind of some structured type of work and how to work with an LLM or interface like that, get a lot out of it. I think the other end of the spectrum is, there's kind of folks in the middle of their career. I think people coming out of college are going to kick ass with AI. Mm-hmm. They're growing up with it. They're learning it. They're using it. They're doing it. Doesn't matter. They don't have that huge base. They're going to have a huge base of how to use AI because they're playing around with it all the time. They're using it for all kinds of stuff. We just have to help the middle kind of figure out their transition too.
Yeah, I think
I some thoughts on this.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead, Alan?
No, Sanjeev, you go first.
Yeah, two points I want to make. One on which I think we are spot on when it comes to what are the college folks going to do? My son just came out of college and is seeing work. My daughter's in college and seeing how she is using or not using AI. I think people panic a little bit saying, hey, the entry-level jobs will change or will go away. I don't think they will go away. They will change. Because I remember what the entry-level jobs was when I started, right? People handing me 64 floppy disks to say, go install this system. You needed to know the geometry of your hard drive in order to install Linux back then. That was entry-level job then. Today, it's double click on download now, and that's the entry-level job. And then it's configuring. And they'll just get elevated beyond where they were. The second, so I don't think we need to panic. The second point I want to make, Amberly, which is on what you said. One of the things I'm recommending as I'm traveling, I just came back from the Bay Area, met with a bunch of startups which are in the AI space, dealing with infrastructure or with coding, most of them in one of those two spaces. One of the things I'm recommending all of them do is read the Systems Thinking book by, I think it's by I forget I'm looking around for it. I can't find it on my desk. It's probably behind me on the bookshelf because I'm bad with names, but it's it's a pretty old book. It's been around forever. But people need to realize that you are inserting something into a system which is already in place. The system could be a factory. It could be a law firm. It could be places where we work, could be a household. It's a system which works. It has processes and workflows. When you bring in something new, all the workflows need to change. And if you don't change them, either the system will fail or whatever you're trying to insert will fail, which what the McKinsey report showed us, right? 95% of projects are failing because they cannot get integrated into the system without changing the system itself. I think we have a lot of thinking we need to do and go back to some fundamental systems thinking.
That's interesting because I was reading when in that Udacity report, they talked about the thing that it was lacking in, or was it that one or something else I was reading that was lacking in using, I'm sorry, I'm talking about vibe coding, is the lack of the architectural design that goes with it. I know that's another topic, so I'll drop.
Did I ever tell you about my time in the construction industry?
No, I don't think we've heard about
I'm about third year. I'm in third year of college, and I come home and tell my mom, I think I'm going to take, we didn't call it gap years then. I didn't come from that kind of house. But I said, Mom, I'm going to take a year off and make some money. I'm going to talk to my uncle who's in construction and let him get me a job in the construction industry. My mom being a Jewish mom, three worst words you could say is I'm not finishing school. So they get me a job in construction. I'll tell you about it another time. My construction career lasted 2 days and then I quit and went back to school. But here's what I found out about.
That's good because you don't know the difference between 3 and 4 words either. So.
Well, exactly. That was a clue. But I did meet Mike. I got to tell you the truth. I met a lot of your friends. They were recently over from Ireland. They took me to the Blarney Stone for lunch. It was liquid lunches, and it was a whole story. But that being said, what I found out about construction, it's messy. There's a reason why they wear those hard hats, because shit gets blown up and there's stuff falling and they're breaking down to reconstruct, and it's such a mess. It's hard to imagine what a beautiful building or what a beautiful thing they're building in the midst of the construction, because you literally, you can't see the forest through the trees because you're in it. You're working on this little piece, and you might be banging and tearing that piece up to make something beautiful, but you don't see it till it's done. That's where we are in AI. That's where we are in AI. We are in the midst of a major renovation, the likes of which we have not seen before. Not cloud, maybe the internet itself.
Yeah, you're spot on, Alan. I mean, if you think about it, this is the pets.com era of the, if you want to draw an analogy, right? We have Chewy.com today, which is nothing but pets.com, but done right. Yeah. Like pets.com happened during the messy period of the internet. Chewy.com is happening now when the internet is well understood, the systems work, they know how to plug things. They don't need to go disrupt the system to make the company work. Yeah. So drawing that.
Right now, we need a little hard hat around this AI stuff, but it will shake itself out. It will normalize. people aren't going away. I've written about this. I said this. I know, Tracy, you're a big fan of AI. You can't wait. But,
when did that happen?
no, I know. But here's the thing I've been saying. AI will never replace the spark that resides in us, the creativity that humans bring that have allowed us to evolve over these hundreds of thousands, depending who you believe, whatever. I'm not going to get into it, but has made humans humans is that spark, is that ability to use tools, is that creativity. AI is perhaps maybe the greatest tool we've ever invented.
So let me just chime in for a minute here.
Go ahead.
I don't think that AI is one of the biggest changes that we've ever seen. I think it's a change that's happening faster than most changes, but we have gone through far more disruptive periods in time. Think about going from when everybody had a green screen in the mainframe and we went to open systems. Talk about breaking down software. That was a massive overload. It was every bank, every insurance company, they couldn't find enough people to start writing open system software. Everybody was trying to get off the mainframe. That allowed us to be where we are today. So
Still on the mainframe.
Mainframe is still around and it's safer, and a lot of government will never get off of the mainframe, and a lot of banks, and it never went away. But what I'm saying was, I would say, and maybe I could be wrong, 90% of applications now are not running on ZOS. Now,
well, no, very few are running on Xerox. That I'll give you.
Exactly. But God bless them. These are always everything is always disruptive in software. That's what we do. We love to disrupt ourselves, and the people on the users get freaked out every time we do it. Every single time we do it, people had to learn to use a mouse. Talk about difficult. I can remember classes for organizations teaching people how to use a mouse. So AI is disruptive. Software is disruptive. The difference here is, I think, the speed and the control, because I believe that a lot of people see that they're losing control, and that's what freaks them out.
Even
going from the mainframe to the
computer.
I still think there is a lot of frustration out there. And I was just talking to somebody about this morning. They said, I use AI to do the first draft of all my posts and everything I do, but I do it because it just makes me angry. And then I fix it and make it right. And again, it kind of makes it better. And so he was using it as a motivational tool, but basically he was also saying that this thing doesn't do what it needs to do for him. So
I collaborate. I collaborate with AI.
Don't blame the tool. Don't blame the tool. Blame the
I just want to pick up a little bit what Tracy was laying down there, because I actually I'm sort of halfway between you all. I see the revolution. I see the opportunity. I see it certainly for known knowns. And I've talked about this on TechStrong before, the idea of known knowns. The LLM AI especially is essentially just autocorrect, right? It has to know what's right to be able to do the work. There's a lot of Management by Magazine where people are saying, well, AI is like a human. It knows things and can work things out. And this comes back also to what you were saying, Alan, about the spark. The known knowns it's really good at. If I wanted to write a blog about DevOps and value stream management using my content from the last 15 odd years as input, it's going to do really well. If I wanted to create a product vision and roadmap that's going to create innovative new capabilities in my software, I might give it one pass, but I don't think it's going to come up with ideas like my team would. And it, again, makes me think of Amara's law, the idea that we overestimate the effect of a technology in the short term, but we underestimate the impact on the long term. So I think we might all be right here. I think we are overestimating what it can do right now. And there's a lot of Management by Magazine, and this is why we don't trust it, because it's creating slop, because we're overestimating what it can do. But the things it can do now are amazing, and we'll probably get to a point where it's doing things we didn't even think it would, like the internet does, like mobile computing does, like distributed computing did. it got to a point eventually where it's like, oh, wow, I never thought we'd get here. But we're overestimating it in the short term. And that's causing a lot of these problems, I think.
And what Tracy was saying, I would say that there's a couple of other major technological innovations that were much bigger than the mainframe to OS. And I'm not a programmer, so I don't have that perspective, Tracy. And that is the Industrial Revolution. Because I look at that as what that changed is going from a farming community to cities. And we actually moved people because of that, technologically, or personally moving those people. And that's what we're doing also with AI. We are moving them to other jobs that are not that technology.
And to other ways. I mean, I'll tell you.
Right. And the other one was when we went from batch to online transactions. Because again, when we went to online transactions, we moved people from what they were doing, let's say inventory management, and they were calculating all the numbers. Now, all of a sudden, the system is spitting out information about how to manage that, or we're actually using our own ATM, so we don't have to walk into the bank. So that changed with the same thing we started out talking about, is how we're disrupting the workplace at the same time. And then there was fear at the same time. There was an amount of fear at the same time on the people. So to me, those are the two big eras that I
think we have to open our apertures a bit. AI is not just for tech folk.
Mm-mm.
AI is going to be civilization-wide.
It is.
Humanity-wide kind of impact. I said at the top of the show, I spent last week out in Napa Valley at JFrog Swamp Up, and we were there with people from NVIDIA and ServiceNow and Sonar and others, JFrog. And I don't know if I drank too much wine in Napa or the AI Kool-Aid, but between them both, I'm all in. I'm all in. I think the things I saw, the things I heard from the NVIDIA people, and granted, they've got a horse in this race, obviously, but it ain't their GPUs. It's their software. What ServiceNow is doing, what we're seeing every day, these giant companies doing. But Mitch, I'm going to come back to something you said. The fact of the matter is we've shed over 100,000 jobs in the tech sector in the last 18 to 24 months. Well over 100,000 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, and I don't even want to get into it, but just like we revised month to month and quarter to quarter, year to year, our labor board, job growth here in the U.S., I think we're going to need a little perspective to look back and say how many of those 100,000 jobs plus jobs were actually eliminated, at least partially due to AI, or are betting on AI. I think AI on the car. I think Mike says zero. Mike says it, giving me a very New York zero. That's how much.
My opinion is this is like I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and call my project a transformation project, because that's what we're funding right now. That's what happened with these job layoffs that we've claimed are because of AI. Is we read an AI strategy, we won't need all these people, whether it's Zuckerberg or it's XYZ person. They're making those claims. Part of it is just an excuse to manage Wall Street and manage expectations. Yes, those changes will come, but I'm with Mike. I'm on the zero scale of none of those are.
Well, no, you got to go like this, Mitch. Zero.
You mean they don't want to stand up in front of? You mean they don't want to stand up in front of Wall Street and say we sucked at this and we overhired and
we're AI? We're on bandwagon. We don't need half those people. Let's do this. So, by the way, it really helped our numbers this quarter.
Yeah. All right, hey guys, we can talk about this one all day, but we got more to talk about. I'm going to call it on this. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. I'm going to talk about the reality of AI coding, or is it all a hallucination? You're watching TechStrong Gang.
Discover TechStrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with TechStrong Group.
All right, folks, we're back. And yes, we are continuing on a theme. There's another report talking about, well, just how are folks using AI specifically when it comes to software engineering? And it kind of suggests that while everybody's all in, to Alan's point, but they are running into what might be called systemic issues, things that are bottlenecks in DevOps workflows that AI has not yet addressed and may never address. And as a result, the amount of software being built isn't all that much faster than it was before. Or as one of the wags put it, people are running harder into the same walls they always ran into. Mitch, what's your take here? What's real?
Well, the low-hanging fruit of AI news is I can generate code with AI. No shit, Sherlock. You can generate code with AI. That's not really the big benefit of AI. Yes, it is. It is helping us generate code. Sometimes a lot of code. Sometimes all the code. But the real benefit, that's one person doing one task. And that's what this survey was really showing us, is people are thinking beyond just generating code of where AI can help them. Now, it was interesting kind of juxtaposition. This survey was, I think, done by UpLevel, if I remember the organization. But 87% said that their organization is prepared or very prepared to adopt AI as part of their strategy in their software engineering process. But where they're looking for help, where they're not seeing it, is where I take this from the survey, is helping them fix technical debt. There's a great place for AI. Having a clear strategy for how they're going to use AI. Data security, privacy, kind of the things we would know and expect to be issues. But they also want to use AI to drive operational efficiency, not just development efficiency. They want it also to help them do not just work faster, but innovate faster, do really meaningful things that are going to be valuable to customers and to the business. So I liked this survey, both because it wasn't just somebody that had a product to sell. It was, yes, they do, but it's also that it's looking beyond just the developer and the tasks that a developer does and saying, how does this help us with the entire software development lifecycle, DevOps, operations, you name it. And let's look at where we can get value. I was just at .conf, like while you were at SwampUp, Alan, and that's what it is all about, is AI. That was every part of the announcement with Splunk, but it was all about operational efficiency and ways that they are starting to use AI. But of course, it's also about the data that drives it.
Anybody? I'll jump in. So a factoid I picked up while I was out there last week, according to Gartner, if you believe him or not, Microsoft and Google acknowledge that up to 30% of the software they're pushing right now, internally, externally, is AI-derived code. 40% of CIOs are asking for more budget because they're being pressured by their boards to do more AI. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? This is not a bottom up. This is a top down, right? The discussion we used to have around DevOps a lot, but it's a top down kind of thing. I don't know this particular survey, but other surveys I've seen, upwards of 75% or higher of organizations are already using AI in coding. The train's left the station, guys. If you didn't buy your ticket, you better be able to run real fast.
That's low. I think everybody is. In some form or some way, they're using AI today. It's 99%.
Even if they don't have a AI coding tool, they're putting, using ChatGPT or Perplexity or something to get answers.
Shadow AI.
Alan, I have a question for out there on what you said. Sorry, Kimberly. I want to. Sundar Pichai from Google appeared on the Lex Friedman show. And Lex asked him, how is AI coding going? And Sundar was very candid. He said 30% of the code being generated is from AI. But the caveat, that has increased their velocity only by 10%. Mm-hmm. Because the rest of the pipeline is still slow.
So is it empty calories? What's the story? My wife hates empty calories.
Well, but it gets worse than that, because a lot of the code being generated is very verbose and very large, and it winds up increasing the amount of technical debt you got to service. And then, as Tracy has noted on previous shows, the people who are supposed to debug that code never saw that code in the first place. And so they don't really know how to debug it. And there's no AI agent for them to debug it with. So they're kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this thing?
So I've got a question for you dev people. How do you define, what is technical debt when it comes to the DevOps side of this? I kind of know technical debt on the infrastructure side, but that's a different view of it. And how do you think, or how could AI assist in fixing technical debt?
Think of it as
there's got to be analysis on that.
Yeah. There's a lot of studies around this, and a lot of it falls into maintenance, just kind of keeping things current, upgrading this version of Linux, and all the things that it impacts. It's also the features of the bugs that you don't get to, that people have asked for, that kind of stack up in the back of the room, that other things have taken priority. And a lot of times it doesn't get addressed until something else needs it to change. So in order to get this new feature in, I've got to upgrade the database. Okay, now I've got to go back and take the time to do the technical debt work to be able to then go to add this new feature to the database or to the application.
You know where else we're seeing technical debt building up? In the transition to platform engineering and internal developer platforms. Man, there's a lot of debt sitting on the books right there.
Yeah.
Right. And as large organizations, especially, technical debt's usually a large company problem. Not that smaller companies don't have it.
Every team has it.
Right. But the large companies, they're just wallowing.
We've had those systems, the bigger the debt. Let's put it.
Yeah. I mean, they just,
Those large companies did not become large organically. They usually acquired other companies. They acquired systems. They had somebody else build a system. And none of those projects ever finished, right? None of those integrations ever finished. There were Band-Aids and bubblegum sticking them together. And that's the technical debt which needs to be fixed. Because
you've never seen that, Sanjeev, at any of your stops at IBM or Truist or anything like that.
Yeah. And don't forget all those known vulnerabilities that we shipped anyway.
Yep. And look, I would personally posit that technical debt is anything I'm not still working on, right? Anything that's in production is effectively technical debt. You always need to upgrade, to your point, you're patching and, getting rid of libraries that have, got vulnerabilities in them or something like that. But also one of the areas where I see in terms of technical debt, AI could be really good, and I've had some personal success with this, is porting to a different platform, a different language. There's a whole bunch of old stuff written in a bunch of, we talked about mainframe in the earlier block, the idea that we got a bunch of stuff in COBOL and we want to port that onto a distributed system or onto a cloud system. Language. It's about language. Your LLMs are large language models. It's actually a perfect use case for LLM-styled AI to do translation from an old language to a new language, from an old platform to a new platform. So that's one example of where technical debt could actually be solved really well by AI. These known knowns again come up, that it knows this language, this platform, that platform. Porting it would be quite a good use of AI, I think, in terms of resolving.
Probably do it on the new AirPods 3.
Oh, the in-ear translation.
Yeah, that's all.
But I'm interested to see whether I want them to go to northern Scotland and see if they can translate anything.
Andy, I was going to use it for when you and I talk.
Yeah, just go to Brooklyn.
So then more of the issue is prioritizing which technical debt to tackle.
Yes. Well, that's the issue. You can't do it all.
For the purpose of, driving forward the new application environments that the organization says is critical for us to be competitive with. So so that's kind of part of that is a management issue about prioritizing those pieces. So let's move. Right,
in some ways, we're making this a bigger problem. I mean, it will grow to be a bigger problem than it already is, for two reasons. One is and I'm curious your perspective on this, Sanjeev. If you use these tools, whether it's Cursor or Copilot or whatever it might be to develop code with, it's very anxious to modify a lot of code for you and generate more code. It's always offering to, would you like me to do this? Would you like me to do this? It's sort of like that pesky little brother that wants to, wash your car, so you take him to the store and buy some can. Would you like, can I? Literally it is. And you have to stop it from, I actually don't want you to change that, because that's more than I want to change. So one is I think AI introduces not just a lot of code generated, but a lot of code change, which puts more pressure on better testing quality of code. The other is it isn't generating secure code. Some people say it's less secure, more vulnerabilities, whatever, even if it's the same as what we do today. If you believe the amount of code we generate, let's say it is 30% more code. The code is being generated by AI, then that means AI is generating 30% more vulnerabilities. Or if it's only 10% productivity improvement, that means 10%, that we've now carved off to do other things, but we're still generating vulnerabilities, and we need somebody, AI people, to review that to fix it. So you'll get to a point where if a human has to be in the loop to fix what AI does, that's a point where now you can't pass that. You can't go and get $200 because there's not enough people, entry level or not, to fix what
I think right now humans have to be in the loop.
they do.
We do.
They do.
100%. We do.
Use it and you'll see it. You do today. You do.
We don't want to get Tracy started on the problems of LLM.
Oh, I was just about to turn it up, Trace. That's why I couldn't get to you.
LLMs are technical debt themselves. Imagine the amount of data that has to be maintained in those large language models. The sooner we stop building these, the better off we will be. I am going to be on record for saying that. We need domain-specific small language models to get the job done. That's more accurate, less hallucinations, and less crap on your screen.
Tracy, do you have an AI dooms clock? Are we like 3 minutes to midnight here?
Listen, I love technology and I love AI, but I hate the fact that money has gotten so deep into this particular technology that we can't stop ourselves from writing something that's not going to work in the long term. And we keep running down these LLM models and we think they're the best solution, but they're not. We need domain experts. And we need small language models that are domain experts. That's what's going to make us better at using AI. That's what's going to improve the trust. I would love to have a DevOps small language model. Imagine what you could do to build that. You should have a small language model for medicine, a small language model for coding. The way we're implementing, I use ChatGPT when I'm writing, and I say I collaborate with it. Sometimes it makes me laugh. I'll crack up with the stuff that it comes up with. It's like, boy, you really like to beef things up and make things. You're a marketing genius in that brain of yours, and I'll say that to it.
Yeah. But do you actually say it to it or you type it to it?
I type it back.
So, I had a revelation. I was in the car with Bonnie last weekend in Napa, and we went hiking. Two kids, we're not kids, but two people from Brooklyn going hiking. This is in Prospect Park, but we're hiking in Napa, and we had a question about, proper things to do while hiking. And so I said, Bonnie, let me chat GPT. And she said, you're going to sit here and start typing? I said, no, let me show you how it works. And I said, chat GPT, and I asked it the question, and it started, and we got into a conversation. She had never heard anyone converse with AI before. And someone said before, Kimberly, you're talking to people who are not techie people. The first time they have a conversation with this thing, I forgot how I take it for granted now. Mm-hmm. She was stunned, and even that she started laughing, and the AI said, "I'm glad you think that's funny."
Well, you know what hiking means to someone from Brooklyn, Alan. It's going out to the 10th row of the parking lot.
Right. No, this was seriously hiking. I think I need knee replacement. But anyway, but we forget how mind-numbingly kind of earth-shattering, that kind of, and maybe it's a cheap parlor trick, maybe it's not. But it makes a huge impact on people. Huge impact.
We do need to get to the next topic, folks.
All right, we're off. Take a break here. Let me ask ChatGPT what we should do. We'll be back in a second. We're going to talk more about AI vibe coding. Great. You're watching TechStrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey folks, we're back and continuing the theme. We're going to talk a little bit about these vibe coding tools. ServiceNow came out with a set that they're adding to their platform. And let's start this off with Sanjeev. But, I'll look at this as the glass is maybe less than half full. But so we had low code, no code tools, and end users use those to build applications that, well, they were ugly, they were insecure, and they didn't scale. So now we're going to give them these vibe coding tools that are easier for them to create those same applications and more of them. And this is a good thing, right? Sanjeev, where are we with this stuff?
Yeah, I think the hype, let's put it this way. I used to have a boss back in the day who used to say that your PowerPoint is way ahead of your code. I think that's where we are. The copy from the marketing people is way ahead of reality, right? I mean, these vibe coding tools are excellent for building a prototype, for building an MVP, for going and giving it to product people to say, hey, what should this feature look like? And it reduces the cost of experimentation, right? I can build 100 prototypes or 100 versions of a new feature and then experiment with them, instead of just A/B coding, I can do A to ZZ, testing and figure out what really works. But I don't think we are where I can vibe code my way to a production ready application and run banking transactions through it. Forget banking transactions. I wouldn't trust it to run webcast. So I think we are ways off from there, but it's getting there, right? I mean, I think people is what we were talking about earlier, right? Long term, it's going to be very important because long term, I think the end vision of this is to have a software factory which inputs go into, electrons go into, and tokens come out, which is production ready software. We are not there yet. The difference between a software an AI factory that produces software and the current model is, in a factory, if it produces a bad widget, you change the factory, you change the production system, you don't fix the widget. Today, what we do, we generate code. If it's bad code or if it has bugs in it or vulnerabilities in it, we fix the code. We need to go back and get to a stage where we can go fix the models and the processes and the workflows which produce the code. That's the whole concept of an AI factory, right? But we are not there yet. But it's progress. What ServiceNow has brought out, what a few other companies, and I met with a few startups which I cannot talk about yet. They're still in semi-stealth mode. What's coming out is impressive. I can't wait to talk about those things and can't wait to use them myself. I got demos and I got to see a few very interesting things.
I like the way you put that. You don't fix the widget, you fix the problem that created the bad widget, right?
Exactly.
Which is very much why we need to generate secure code or have agents or whatever fixing that code before it ever comes to us, right? So it has those vulnerabilities taken out of it. It's interesting. ServiceNow calls this vibe coding because it's like DevOps. It's got a million definitions, right? It started as this idea of just leaning into AI to do everything for you to create software, like as much as you possibly could, use AI for all of it. And that's not really what we're talking about with ServiceNow. They're talking about adding AI to an existing no-code tool. And I've seen the demo of the ServiceNow announcement. And it's, instead of you laying out the logic of this, great, let's have an agent do that. Let's give it a prompt of what we're going to do. So it's inserting, LLMs and kind of beginning levels of agents. So is it vibe coding? I wouldn't call it vibe coding, but is it adding AI to a workflow tool, a service management tool? Yeah, absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense. That's how to introduce it. You're not going to your point, Sanjeev, you're not going to throw everything out you've done with ServiceNow today and say, let's do it all this way now. No, you're going to add it and experiment with it and say, that's really good at that task and not so great at that. I don't know if I trust that yet. Let's do more of this over here. It'll help people get an introduction to a way to introduce AI into their processes.
We'll talk about technical debt. You just added a whole lot of technical debt when you're using something like vibe coding, because not only are you paying for that, you're also having to deal with the maintenance of something you didn't write. You have no idea what it's doing. And then if you want to change it, are you going to go back to your vibe coding platform, or are you going to use humans to do that? And how long it will take for those developers to figure out what the heck it did? I mean, some of this code is so spaghetti looking. It's not there yet. Maybe ServiceNow is fixing that, and I hope they can.
So as I was reading through that, again, not being a DevOps person, and Alan, going back to your construction discussion, I kind of, and maybe Sanjeev or Tracy, maybe you can visualize this for me, but what I saw this as is somebody that's drawing a design of a very attractive office building, museum, or whatever, from an architect standpoint. And after you give that design, you've got to put all the engineering functionality behind that in order to support this thing that is very different looking. It's not the square box or whatever. It's, there's a lot of things to think about as you structure this building in the way that you want to design it, and whether or not it's going to sustain and hold up, cool, heat appropriately, etc. So am I thinking it in the right way?
I think you are, Kimberly, that the way the analogy falls apart. And I remember when I was doing architecture work for IBM, I remember walking up to a real architect, somebody I knew who was architected buildings, cities, cityscapes and all, and talking to him about, hey, why don't we write a blog post about the architecture analogies between real architecture, physical architecture, and, software architecture. The reason we never did it was because the analogy falls apart, because there are no laws of physics governing software. When an architect is working and he's saying, oh, let's create this overhanging, pool, he's like, well, wait a minute, do you know how much that will cost? Because how strong that glass and thick will need to be to have this pool that juts out over the balcony, right? What the tensile strength of the steel needs to be. Those are all driven by physics. With software, we don't have those laws. People try to write anything, and we can technically write anything. We can write complex software which can drive, quantum mechanics systems. We can write software which does very complex things. Heck, we put a man on the moon, 56 years ago, right? Using a computer with assembler code. So we can do very complex things, but if they are not architected and thought through properly in a systems way, and these systems are very fluid in software, unlike physical buildings, I think because we don't have those laws of software, we have principles and patterns, and people take liberties and take shortcuts and introduce technical debt. I think that's why the analogy falls apart after a while. And I would love to still write that blog post one day, but my collaborator ran away when he said how complex and messy writing software was. He's like, I'm going back to the world of construction, man. That's much simpler.
Well, I think that is a fabulous analogy. And I want to point out that the laws of physics require safety.
Yep.
Right? That is the whole point of it. And we don't think about security and safety too much in software. Yep. So please, we need to do that more often. We need to pretend. Let's pretend that software has physics that's governing its safety, right? How would we change?
And that would have been interesting to put into a foundation, a model for coding. If you're going to create a language model for that, it could start with those disciplines and principles about systems thinking that you're talking about, Sanjeev. And the second part of that is what are the principles, the physics principles for coding that should be in place.
Kimberly, we'll be allowed to wait 56 years for all of us to agree upon what the principles are. That's the problem.
You know what? I'm listening to you guys. I'm reminded of Ronald Reagan, right? And I wanted to say, there you go again. There you go again. Just look just look at what it does already. The fact that it's allowing you to prototype in a fraction of the time that it used to take you to prototype. And, it's getting you 50%, 60% of the way there. And here we are, spoiled little rotten scoundrels, saying, I want my 95%. I want it to work 100% today. Think about that. And I get it. We all want it to go that last mile. But even if it just stopped where it is today, it's already a tremendous boon. It's already a tremendous help in how we approach these things, right? I think sometimes we lose sight of that. And it may never get to the point, Sanjeev, where it's going to incorporate the laws of physics and it's going to write, Tracy, to your satisfaction, the greatest enterprise code apps that we've ever seen. It may not.
But what I do want to make regarding what Camberley you said of putting these laws in the LLM, I think the LLM is the wrong architecture to put laws in it. Because LLMs, as we stated earlier, and in fact, there was an article came out of ThoughtWorks a couple of weeks ago, and the quote in it was, all LLMs do is hallucinate. We got to figure out which hallucinations are useful. Right.
Or maybe we all live in the hallucination. Red pill, blue pill.
Very true. I'm actually not here. This is, an AI bot speaking to you. But I think where the architecture we are seeing come from agentic systems, where you can now spawn off thousands of agents, which are challenging all the 1,000 paths your LLM could take, and figuring out converging on a solution which is closer to a law of physics level of reality is a better solution than saying, let's put it in the LLM, because the LLM is still a probability engine, which is going to ignore the law of physics when it doesn't want to pay attention to it because it believes it's gone down a path probabilistically, which ignores the laws of physics, and the probability engine is taking it there. So the agentic way of saying, let's look at all the probability distribution of, does not take the highest probability output, but look at the top 10 or top 20%, and then converge upon one is a much better solution architecturally. In my opinion, based on current technology, we might come with a totally different architecture a few years from today, where you can incorporate those laws of physics equivalents in software.
I'd like to bring it back to what ServiceNow is doing, because I think there's something really valuable to learn about this. This isn't a vibe coding tool. Here you go. Create whatever you'd like with it.
No.
The world is your canvas. This is adding AI to a workflow management system, of which major enterprises use every day to drive their business. And you're not going to stick AI into it in a way that it's going to screw all that up. That'll be the last time they use that product, right? They're moving on to somebody that's not going to tank their business because they got all experimental with AI. So look at what ServiceNow announced. Yes, they announced an agent builder, but they also announced a way to control agents and know what agents are running and what they're doing. They also announced what the security model for AI and the machine identity that agents or the AI will have in that. So they're thinking about this very purposely. And I talked to them before, sometime before this came out. And it's very conscious of, we're not just taking what we have and throwing it away. We've got to figure out a way that AI fits into this, because you're not just going to build new things with it. We want people to use AI in the stuff they're doing now. So it's got to be added in a way that's safe, that's secure. Now, yes, you could probably put a prompt in there that's not going to be safe or secure, but you've got some guardrails around to control it. To your point, to your point, Sanjeev, it's not the model that's going to save your butt. It's guardrails and other things that's going to do that.
It's the agents, right? And those guardrails can be provided by agents, and there'll be a planner agent, a designer agent, a validator agent, a judge agent, a quality agent. So I think that's the way where the world is headed, and that model is going to be is the future. So, ServiceNow is spot on to do that. And there are many other companies which are working on.
I want to give you the last word, and then we got to wrap up.
Look, I'm just going to come back to where we all started, where a lot of us started is DevOps. We're talking a lot about dev. Where's the ops? Who's running this slop? Where's the operability, the scalability, the manageability, the supportability? Where are all the illities? Do we have an LLM for the illities yet? So look, I come at DevOps from an ops perspective, and what I see is a lot of crap getting thrown over the fence again. Did we not solve this problem, team?
Hey, yeah, oh my God, I'm having a deja vu.
It's a hell of a way to end the segment.
Guys, I'm sorry. I got to pull the plug, though, because we've got more to do. I'm sure, but people have other stuff to do at their work today. What an invigorating, stimulating panel discussion. I love all of you for coming on here and talking about it. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have. As usual, we've got a full boat of TechStrong TV following the gang today, so check that out. If you're not watching this live on Monday, wherever you're watching it from, we've got a lot more TechStrong content there for you as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another great gang panel. Some of us will be the same. Some of us will change. We protect the names we change the names to protect the innocent. But Sanjeev, Andy, Tracy, Kimberly, Mitch, Mike, thank you. Thank you for watching. I'm Alan Schimmel. We're out.